Okay, thanks for talking to me.
Thank you so much. That ended a tiny bit abruptly, and I just wanted to put a slight addendum in. There has been a smidge of confusion about this whole confronting your parents stuff. So I want to explain it. People will still misunderstand it if they want to, but at least I want to be on the record for explaining sort of what I mean. When it comes to your life, the big question is this. Do you value telling the truth? If you value telling the truth, then you should not have relationships in your life where you have to lie, where you have to misrepresent, where you have to self-raise, where you have to live in not just unreality, but anti-reality. So if people have abused you, if they abused you as a child, if your parents abused you as a child, then if you continue to see them as if not only did they not abuse you, but that they were good parents, then they're demanding, or you're in a situation where you have to not just lie, but act in the opposite way that you feel, right? So it's one thing to lie, right? If I, let's say that I'm a vain guy, I'm like hammering something, and I hit my thumb. Now, it's one thing if somebody says, didn't that hurt? And if I say no when it did, I'm lying. But it's quite another thing to pretend that it was somehow orgasmic bliss to hit my thumb with a hammer, right? So one is you're just lying, you're not telling the truth. The other is you're telling the opposite of the truth. Now, lying is bad in general. Telling the opposite of the truth, or living the opposite of the truth, is extraordinarily self-destructive. But it's hard to see that level of self-destruction that occurs in that situation. So when I talk to people, knowing how dangerous anti-reality is, unreality is, no, it didn't hurt when I hit my finger, hit my thumb with the hammer. Anti-reality is, I loved it. It was wonderful. It was so ticklish. It was a thrill. It was fun, right? That's worse than lying. That's doing I don't even know if there's a word for it, probably something in German that I can't pronounce. But if you have these kinds of issues with anyone, doesn't matter, parents or siblings or a teacher or anyone, right? Then you have a choice, and your choice is this. You can either sit down and tell the truth and make a request, you could say a demand really, that you not be forced to do the opposite of what you know to be true. You should not be forced to pretend to love someone when they have done you great harm, done you great evil. You should not pretend that everything's fine and everything is not fine. You should not be forced to do the opposite of what you know to be true. Now, that's a requirement I have in relationships. I will not be in relationships where there is an enforcement or an insistence that I fake the opposite of what I know to be true. Like I won't do it. Because I know the cost of that. And the cost of that is to elevate evil and bullying and anti-reality to the highest pinnacle of your value system. And if you don't think that costs you love and integrity and self-respect and honesty and virtue, well, you're fooling yourself. It does. It's one thing to tell a little white lie, no, I don't think you've gained 5 pounds, not a big moral issue. But when you have to stand in front of evildoers and pretend to love them because they will attack you if you tell them the truth, that has grave consequences. I believe for your mental health, for your virtue, for your integrity, and your capacity to love, and for your self-respect. If, as a free agent, as an adult, as a person with independence and sovereignty and free will, if you voluntarily subsidize the rancid delusions of evildoers, you cannot do that and maintain self-respect. You can't do it. The price is, I hate to say self-love because that sounds a bit narcissistic and oily, but self-respect. You can't respect yourself if you fake your entire experience in order to appease evildoers. You just can't. And if you can't respect yourself, you can't find someone who's going to respect you. You can't find love. It will erode your relationships. It will undermine your sense of happiness. You will end up with ennui and depression and perhaps even self-loathing if it's extreme enough and significant enough to your environment. And of course, you then have to live a duality. Because the things that we can't admit to ourselves are the things that really undo us. So if you are going to go and see someone who harmed you, and you say, okay, well, I have X ulterior motive, it's going to be terrible, but I'm going to do it for X, Y, and Z reason, or whatever. They're dying, I want an inheritance. I mean, it may not be great, but let's say that, okay, at least you're being honest with yourself. I'm going to pretend to like them. I really don't like them. I'm going to pretend that evil didn't happen in the past. I'm going to pretend that only good happened in the past when I know that evil happened in the past. You can do all of that as long as you're honest with yourself. But that's generally not what happens. What happens is people are cowardly and appease evildoers and pretend it's some sort of virtue. Oh, I've forgiven them. Oh, I've forgotten. Oh, I've moved on. Oh, I've put the past in the past. Oh, I'm bigger. I'm taking the high road. They make a virtue out of falsifying reality in order to appease evildoers. They make a virtue out of it. Now, that's the problem. Because then you come across someone you love or someone who might love you, and they see this duality. They see you appeasing evildoers, undoing your whole history, your whole reality, and then telling yourself you're doing something virtuous. How could they end up with anything other than eventual contempt for you? I mean, they can illuminate, they can point out the facts and so on. So as far as, do you see your parents or you don't? Just be honest. Just be honest with people. And if you choose to stay in a relationship where you have to lie, you have to misrepresent, you have to turn evil into good in this furious black alchemy of rejecting the past, if you have to praise and kiss the hands that beat you or smashed you, you can either be honest about it, which I think makes it very hard to stomach, or you can lie about it to yourself and pretend that you're doing something good and noble and forgivey and virtuous, but you're not. You're just lying to others, you're lying to yourself. And, what's worst of all, you're lying to yourself about lying to yourself. And that's where we get really lost and lonely. It's too high a price to pay, I believe. But that choice is up to you, as long as you know what the choice really is.